Hi, I'm Craig Phillips. Welcome to my tiling trade tips. In this video, I'm going to show you how to grout wall and floor tiles using 3 different types of grout. The first grout I'm going to use is a standard one for ceramic wall tiles. The second grout is going to be a flexible grout designed for both floors and walls if there's any movement in the area. And the third one is going to be epoxy grout. That's when you need a really waterproof finish. Now the first stage of the grouting is to make sure all of your tiles are clean. You probably fixed them the day before so they're nice and dry. Start off by removing all of your tile spaces from out the whole area. Once you've done this, you then need to start cleaning off any excessive adhesive that may be left on the surface of the tile from the day before. I'm just going to use myself a nice sponge with a green scouring pad. Just using a little scraper to scrape off any big lumps. Once you've got that cleaned off, just get yourself a tissue and give it a dry off. Making sure you're taking off any of that dirty water that could be on the surface that you don't want to contaminate your nice grout. And when you've got it as clean as that, leave it to dry for half an hour and then you're ready to start mixing your grout. So for these floor tiles, I'm going to be using a mold resistant, flexible, water repellent grout. I'm going to put a card down on the actual tiles because I don't want any dust to go on there. I've got a small mixing bucket and a mixing trowel. I'm going to apply some water into here. Now do check the manufacturer's mixing instructions when you start to mix. I'm going to put a small amount in to start with. Each time you apply the powder, it'll start to get a little bit thicker and thicker. Just keep mixing that up until you get rid of all the lumps in it. That's the type of consistency we're looking for. So it just runs off your trowel like that. Perfect. Right. We're ready to start grouting. I'll start by using my grouting float. And I'm going to start to push the grout in between all of the grooves. It's very important that you get it right the way down to the bottom of the tile where it meets the tile adhesive. And of course, both edges of the tile is completely covered. What we want to avoid is there's no voids or air gaps between any of the tiles and the adhesive. Once you've pushed it right the way down in between the tiles, get the edge of your float and drag off any excessive adhesive. And of course, you can reuse that in the next joint. And when I'm putting this in, I'm kind of doing it on a couple of angles. I'm going across it one way like this, and then across the other, making sure it really is getting in between every groove. Now, of course, it looks quite messy at the moment. Don't worry about that. It's supposed to look like this until it starts to react and it'll start to dry off. And then, of course, we're going to sponge it down to take off some of the remaining grout off the tiles, of course, but not out of the joints. So that's stage 1 of the grouting already done. We've mixed it up and we've applied it in between the joints of all the tiles. It's only been done for about a minute or so, and you can start to see it's already drying on the tile. Now, of course, you've got to remove that. So I'm going to get a sponge, some nice clean water, relatively damp, and I'm just going to start to sponge the tile a little bit, but remember the grout is still wet around the tile, so we don't want to be removing that out. We want to, if anything, push that down deeper and get a more smoother finish on it. but at the same time start to clean the actual tiles themselves. Now you will have to do this a number of times in different stages, and again it comes down to that drying time. Some different textured tiles are going to be more porous than others and are going to dry quicker, and of course the temperature in the room will make a difference. But you can see I'm just doing it nice and light. I'm taking it off the surface of the tile, which is important, but I'm not actually taking it out of the joint itself. And it's at this point now you do want to check that you've got no voids in there whatsoever, and it's all a nice equal finish across each tile. You can already see just a minute or two we started here, it's starting to dry out in this corner. It's going a little bit cloudy on there. Don't worry about it, it's going to happen like that. You just leave it now for about another 5 or 10 minutes. Keep wetting your sponge and going back to it. You may have to do this 4 or 5 times before you completely clean the tiles up, and still then leave it to dry for the following day. You'll come back, it might be a little bit cloudy, but the following day when the grout is completely dry, you can be a little bit heavier with the sponge. Now we're ready to do our wall tiles. Just like the floor tiles, you've got to clean the surface, take away all of the tile spaces, use a scraper to scrape off any of the stubborn tile adhesive that still could be on the surface of the tile. Once it's washed down, dry it off, and it's ready to apply the grout. I'm using a standard grout this time. Again, it's a cement-based product. I've added water to it, I've mixed it up just the same as we did on the floor tiles. So I'm going to apply a bit of that to the surface of the tile, and then use my spatula to start to spread it in. Again, just like the wall tiles, do it from different directions, so you're making sure you're pushing the grout nice and deep between the voids without any cavity spaces. Again, just like the floor tiles, once you've done a small area, start to scrape off any of the excessive grout and put it back into the bucket. You'll find if you've used a ceramic wall tile, it will slide off them a lot easier than some of the floor tiles, which are designed for a non-slip surface, of course. Now it's been applied now for about 5 minutes, so again I'm getting my damp sponge. I'm just going to do circular motions across the ceramic tiles, wiping off the excessive grout, and at the same time pushing it deeper into the joint. You don't have to put too much pressure, just a small amount, and rubbing your soft end of the sponge up and down and across each of the joints, like that. Now you can probably see at the corner of the tiles I haven't put any grout in there. Now there's a reason for this. One, your walls could have some movement in them with different changes of the temperatures. So what we do is we leave that without the grout in. Once the grout is dry, the next day we put a little bit of flexible silicone in there. Likewise with the bottom of the tiles here. Hopefully you'll have seen one of my other videos on Tile Mountain's website where we fix the tiles to the wall, and I always recommend starting on top of a spacer so you've got that couple of millimetre gap to allow you to get flexible silicone in there. And I've used a darker grout there against the white tile just so you can see it a little bit more at home. When you look closely to most tiles, certainly ceramic tiles, they have a little bit of a beveled edge, so the finish on your grout doesn't want to come to the top surface of the tile. It needs to be set back just a fraction of amount, about 0.5 millimetre deep. Okay, so now I've applied the waterproof flexible silicone down the corners of the tiles and also along the bottom of the tiles, which of course will be sitting either on your bath or your work surface itself. Leave that a few seconds to bite into it, and then you can get a little shaping tool and you can actually press that into the corner and just run it along the edge of the grout like that. Silicone, should I say. Nice and tight, and it pushes it tight into that corner, but it also just makes it a little bit more smoother. So now the silicone is applied, again leave this for another 24 hours till it completely cures. Then it's ready to simply wipe down with a damp cloth. Now preparing for the epoxy is very important that you clean every bit of dried tile adhesive is removed from the surface of the tile, because once the epoxy sticks to that and dries, you will not get it off afterwards. Now the epoxy grout is a 2-part polymer material. It's more designed for hardware and waterproof finishes. It can be used on ceramic tiles, porcelain tiles, floor and wall tiles, mosaic tiles, swimming pool, wet room areas. There's a wide variety of uses for it. 2 sections come. It's already measured out, the actual quantities that you're going to need, so all you have to do is mix it, not adding any water. I'm going to use some safety specs as I don't want this to splash up. So we have one part in here which is a kind of a sticky type material, and then we have the other section in here which looks a little bit like a grease material, and that simply slides into. It's never wise to try and mix a part of a bucket because you can't get the ratio perfect. Now the moment we start to mix both of these materials together, the reaction starts, and it will start to harden relatively quickly. Again, like the cement-based grouts, drying times will differ with different materials you're applying it to and different temperatures, so always read the manufacturer's instructions. It's quite a stiff material to mix, so have a nice rigid hard gauging trowel like this one to keep turning it over the best you can. So there we go, we've now added the 2 parts together. Give it a good mix up for a good 5 or 10 minutes, and then you're ready to start grouting. When using the epoxy grout, always do smaller areas first, like 5 or 6 tiles at once. Apply it in the same as you would with the normal floor or wall grout. Once you've filled all the voids, get a damp sponge straight away and start to wipe it off the surface of the tile. You might have some stubborn areas, get yourself a flat scraper and scrape that off, and then put it into a waste bucket. Some floor tiles may need sealing before you apply your grout, so do check with the supplier whether this is required. And again, like the floor and the wall tiles we done a moment ago, you can run the soft edge of the sponge right across the finished lines just to make sure you've got a smooth grouted finish. As soon as you've done your square meter, you don't have to wait for it to dry off or anything, just clean your sponge back out. Just again sponge over it all, double checking that you have got every bit of grout off the surface of the tile. And that's more or less complete. Leave this to dry for a full 24 hours and then it's ready to use. Now, coming back to the very first tiles we started, the floor tiles with the flexible grey grout in there. It's been about an hour and a half to 2 hours. The grout is more or less dried off on there, but you can still see it's cloudy on the actual tile itself. So I'm going to get my sponge, wet it. This time I can go a little bit harder because I just want to take off that surface grout off the top of that. And straight away you can start to see the grout now looking perfect. Now you can leave this for 24 hours. It might dry a little bit cloudy the following day. If it does, just wash it down again and dry it off with some tissue. So that's the 3 types of grouting now complete. You may choose to seal your grout. If you do this, the cement-based one on standard needs about 24 hours to dry on the wall tiles, but some of the wet room areas may need 48 hours. And of course the epoxy doesn't need sealing, that'll be dry within an hour. So hopefully I've inspired you with my tiling trade tips so you can do your own grouting and you'll get results just like mine. I've spent the last 12 months building my own dream house. I tile the ground floor right the way throughout with these beautiful 800 by 800mm porcelain floor tiles. The kitchen, I created a splashback wall from the work surface all the way up to the ceiling. And our ensuite bedroom, we created a feature wall out of our shower area. For more tiling tips and videos, please visit the website tilemountain.co.uk.